Classroom 13. There was a rumor at West Hollow High School, whispered among students for decades. Deep within the old wing of the building, where classrooms had been sealed off and left abandoned, there was said to be a classroom that no one dared to enter. Room 13. Legend had it that years ago, a teacher had gone mad and locked an entire class of students inside Room 13, before vanishing without a trace. No one knew what happened to the students, and the school never spoke of it. Over the years, the room had been forgotten, the door hidden behind layers of dust and cobwebs, lost in the maze of old hallways. One night, after a long study session, a group of curious students, Mark, Jessica, and Emily, decided to explore the old wing. They had heard the rumors, but didn't believe in ghosts or cursed classrooms. With a flashlight and a sense of adventure, they crept through the decaying halls, their footsteps echoing eerily in the silence. "Do you really think we'll find it?" Jessica whispered. Mark shrugged. "It's just a story. There's nothing to be scared of." But as they ventured deeper, the air grew colder, and an unsettling silence filled the corridors. Finally, they reached it, a rusty metal door with a faded sign that read, Room 13. Emily hesitated. "Maybe we shouldn't." But Mark, always the brave one, twisted the handle. The door creaked open, revealing a room frozen in time. Desks were still in place, books left open on the tables, and a thick layer of dust coated everything. The air was stale, as if it had been sealed for decades. But the strangest thing was the blackboard. It was covered in scribbles, seemingly drawn by hundreds of hands, as though students had written in a frenzy before disappearing. "See? It's just an old classroom," Mark said, stepping inside. But then, something caught Jessica's eye. The chalk on the board was moving. Slowly, letters began to form, written by an invisible hand. "Help us," Emily gasped. "We need to leave, now." Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind them. Mark rushed to the door, pulling at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "It's stuck!" he yelled, panic rising in his voice. The room began to change. The desks started to creak, shifting as though they were being moved by unseen forces. The air grew thick with a foul stench, and the faint sound of whispers filled the room. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, murmuring voices of despair. Jessica backed into a corner, her eyes wide with terror. "This isn't happening." The temperature dropped rapidly, their breath visible in the freezing air. Then, the whispers became screams, agonized, tortured screams of children. Out of the shadows, figures began to emerge, pale, hollow-eyed students in torn, faded uniforms. They looked at the group, their faces twisted in pain as they whispered in unison, "Join us." Emily screamed, stumbling backward as one of the ghostly figures reached for her. Its hand was cold, clammy, and drained all warmth from her skin. "We have to get out of here," she cried. Mark frantically banged on the door, his knuckles bruising against the metal. But the more they tried to escape, the more the room seemed to close in on them. The walls began to warp, the blackboard filling with more frantic writing, trapped forever. Suddenly, the lights flickered and went out completely. The screams grew louder, closer, and in the darkness, the cold hands of the forgotten students closed around them. The next morning, the janitor found Room 13 open, but empty. No one ever saw Mark, Jessica, or Emily again. The only thing left was the blackboard, now smeared with frantic words. "They took us. Don't come here." The door to Room 13 was sealed once again, but the screams could still be heard in the dead of night, echoing through the abandoned halls, waiting for the next group of students curious enough to step inside.